Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, I'm Jennifer Lisanti, the Director of Sales at Beere&Purves. Thank you very much for participating in today's webinar on what you need to know about selling out of state. A couple of housekeeping items before we get started. Everyone is on mute, but we welcome questions. Just type them in during the presentation and I'll review them at the end. This webinar is scheduled for only 30 minutes, so if we don't have time to get to all of them during the webinar, we will circle back to you. And of course, you can always reach out to your B&P sales team. And lastly, we will be sending out a copy of the presentation and a copy of the recording. Our agenda for today is employment trends, carriers for out-of-state groups, handling out-of-state members, important reminders, nuances, and pitfalls, and what do you do with your next out-of-state group? The number one question we'll be answering today is how you can help your groups with medical coverage when they have more employees outside of California than in California. This is not a new question, and we've been writing these groups with United Healthcare for years. But what is new is how frequently we are getting asked this question, which I would say kind of really heated up in the middle of 2020. And we've already seen in 2021 that our sales with this scenario have doubled. So prior to COVID, everyone knows the tech companies kind of led the charge, allowing people to work remotely. Then COVID, of course, exposed a lot more companies to the experience. Remote work has allowed employees to work anywhere they wanted. Some young people moved home temporarily to save money on rent. Why pay California expensive rent when you don't have to be here to go to work? Some people had to move temporarily to go take care of their family. And some people made life decisions to permanently relocate themselves in or including their family to different locations for more work-life balance, et cetera. And then we're seeing a continued trend of wealthy people are looking for more tax-friendly states in California. At first, it felt like California was going to be deserted there for a little bit. I don't know how you guys felt. But I can also tell you, but by the traffic lately, it doesn't seem like as many people left California as it sounded would be. But of course, it's not said and done, so we'll see how it all plays out. And initially, working remotely was a very positive, overwhelming positive experience, and really surprised some companies of how well it worked. And some companies may just decide to make it permanent. You know, some tech companies like Twitter have already made that decision. However, some tech companies like Salesforce are starting to bring some of their employees back into the workplace now that people are getting more and more vaccinated. Some employers are going to like not having to pay for rent. It's probably their number 2 expense behind payroll as a company. But some companies, including tech companies, realize it's a loss of connection and collaboration. And so really the best of both worlds is what's going to work best. If you look on the slide towards the bottom, there's a chart. And this actually shows within our own insurance industry what people want. And of course, with what an employer may want may be different than what employees want, based on are you introvert, are you an extrovert, your family situation, et cetera. So this is within the insurance industry, and it says in gray, 15% of employees would love to work 5 days a week in the office. The opposite of that is only 18% of the people would love to be at home full time. So less than 20% want to be completely at the office, and less than 20% want to be at home 100%. So really, we're looking for a balance or combination. Some people would rather more days in the office, a couple days at home, or vice versa, or maybe even 50-50. So we will see how this plays out. But there's some complexity. So definitely, if your small groups have not already allowed their employees to move out of state, you might want to have the conversation with them of things you need to consider. It does make it more of an administrative burden. You have to find workers' comp for out-of-state employees. It could have an effect on payroll taxes. And we all know, being very familiar with California state mandates, that each state works a little differently and can have different mandates, and balancing, making sure that the employer one knows what they are amongst all the various states, as well as complying, can be a challenge. And then lately in the business news, what I've been seeing is, for example, one company, because of those complexities, has said, okay, you can live in any of the states we already currently have employees because we've already set those things up and are dealing with them, but we don't want to have to deal with more states than already. Other companies are just saying, you can live wherever you want, but we do value that connection and collaboration, so you have to be coming into our physical office at a certain frequency, et cetera. So again, we'll see how this plays out. And again, different people have different opinions on this, different cultures within different employers. This slide just quickly shows kind of where people, per at least the U-Haul report in 2020, were actually moving to. So on the left, you'll see the top 10 places people were moving to. Tennessee moved from number 12 in 2019 up to number 1. I definitely have heard more people talk about Tennessee personally lately. Number 2 is Texas, which was number 2 last year. And of course, Florida is always one of the top places people go to. So you can see the popular states per se, at least per this report. And then over on the right, it lists the places, the bottom 10 places that people are actually moving to. And ironically, our lovely state of California is unfortunately was 49 in 2019 and now is last. I don't think the irony of today's traditional tax day of April 15th is probably lost when you're looking at this, where the states on the left are very tax-friendly states, and the states on the right tend to be more higher taxation states. All right, so how do we solve this problem? The good news is we have more options than we used to. And so when you have a group that has more employees outside of California than in, we have 4 different carriers that may work for you, but it depends on the group's specific scenario, so call us. But it's Aetna, Covered California, believe it or not, Kaiser, and United Healthcare. So one thing I do want to remind people of is in 2016, the state of California changed our small group definition from 1 to 50 to 1-100, and 3 other states followed as well, Colorado, New York, and Vermont. However, all the other states kept their small group definition at 1 to 50, and large group starts at 51 plus. The reason why I mention that is because if you're working with a 75 life group that you're used to being a small group, if we end up quoting them outside of California, one of those 3 other states, that 75 life group will be very happy because they're going to be deemed as a large group and can get composite rates. But just a reminder to you, the broker, that remember when you're dealing with a large group quote, we need more information for a quote, and it can take a little longer to get the quote versus the 10 minutes as usual. So just something to remember. So the first option we'll go over quickly is Aetna. So Aetna will allow you, the California broker, to write groups anywhere throughout the US. So the rule of thumb is where are 51% eligible of the employees living? If that 51% eligible is in New York, Aetna's going to write it out in New York. Really all carriers go by that rule, but just so you know, California, Aetna in California is allowing California brokers to write anywhere in the US. So that's going to dictate what rates and benefits you sell the group is where you have 51% eligible. But you could write groups. Maybe your client that's been your client for 20 years has completely moved the company and all employees outside of California. You could still be their insurance broker with Aetna. Currently, Aetna is very competitive in the small group ACA world in New York, Arizona, and North Carolina. So just keep that in mind. However, when we do talk about you writing a group outside with another state's rates and benefits, do remember you as an insurance broker need to be licensed with that state, and you also have to be appointed with that insurance company that you're writing the policy out of. So even though you're licensed in California and you're appointed with Aetna in California, you would need to get licensed with the state you're writing the policy out of, as well as with Aetna in that state. Moving on to Covered California for small business. So this is a little different in the sense that they don't really have, well, first of all, if you have 51% eligible, you do need to write it in California. And the nice thing with Covered California is currently they don't have a percentage rule that they require. What they do require is that the principal executive office must be in California. And you'd be surprised, a lot of groups don't know where their principal executive office is. We can quickly look it up if it's a corporation or an LLC. You just go to the state's business portal, search, find the company itself, and here's an example of Beere&Purves. In section 2, it says street address of principal executive office. We're located in Walnut Creek, so we'd be good to go. Even if the majority of our employees live outside of California, then not. We'd be okay with Covered California. They don't have a percentage they require, just that principal executive office. I do want to mention that we can still work with groups that aren't corps or LLCs, but there's not an easy way to verify what their principal executive office is. So we just need a little bit of time to verify that and get back to you to let you know if it is truly in California, that we could sell Covered California in that scenario. And then lastly, for Covered California, we just want to point out that, as you know, Covered California has PPO plan designs with 2 different carriers, Blue Shield and Health Net. However, out-of-state members can only have the Blue Shield PPO plan. We all know that Blue Shield has the Blue Card network, the Blue Cross Blue Shield Association throughout the US, which is a very strong network. So that's not too shabby of a plan design to have. So again, Covered California, the group has to have the principal executive office here, and then they would write the group no matter what percentage of the outside of California than in. And we can help you verify if that principal executive office is in California or not. The next carrier that would be an option is Kaiser out of state. Kaiser. And this is a little different because you're not offering a solution for the whole group, but what you'd be doing is if you have California employees within a small group of 1 to 100 full-time equivalents combined throughout the US, you could still give Kaiser to the California employees. So what this means is you would have to go find coverage with another carrier in the other states or combine them with other carrier outside, but this is an option for those California employees to be able to get Kaiser. They're very flexible. Again, the whole group just has to be 1 to 100 full-time equivalents. They don't have a percentage of how many have to be in California versus out, but kind of similar to Covered California, the group needs to be active with the state of California on the business portal. So they're not necessarily looking at that principal executive office to that level of detail like Covered California is, but Kaiser is looking to make sure they're active on the portal. So again, we've listed the link of where you would go, search up the group. If it's a corp or LLC, you can find it. And you can see here that luckily Beere&Purves is active with the state of California. So we're all good to go. But again, you'd have to go find an option for the outside of California employees. This would be an option for only the the California employees, but not a bad option. All right, United Healthcare, as I alluded to, we've written a lot of groups with United in this scenario throughout the years, and they kind of fit all scenarios that we've kind of described with the other carriers. So United is like Aetna. Obviously, it's a large national carrier with a strong national network, and they will allow California brokers to write United in any state. There's a few caveats I'll mention in a second. But so what that means, again, if your group of 20 years has moved completely out of state to the company itself and all employees, you could still be the broker. You would write them with United in whatever state they're in. So if it's 100% in Ohio, you could write the group in Ohio through United Healthcare. So they have a kind of triage system of determining where they're going to write the policy. Number one rule of all carriers is, do you have 51% eligible? And if you do, that's the state that they're going to write the rate and benefits out of. That's where they're going to write that contract. However, we do see very often where you really don't have 51% eligible in any one state. It is really sprinkled throughout the US. So at that point, it's very important to get a very firm census from your client, really kind of push them on this. They really need to know, who's enrolled currently. Do you have any new hires in the wing? Where are those new hires going to be? Which will they be enrolling? Will they be waiving for their spousal coverage, et cetera? Because we determine where we write the group out of the majority enrolling. And we're talking small group in these scenarios, and it can quickly change. So, right, if you've got 3 people in California enrolled, 2 in Texas, 2 in Ohio, 2 in Florida, we just have 1 more in California than we do in the other states. We can still write the UHC policy outside of California, everyone between California rates and benefits. However, at the time we actually go to enroll the group, if they've hired 2 people in Texas that are enrolling, now the scenario's changed and we would have to revert and sell UHC Texas rates and benefits to the same group. So that has happened before when we have such a small delta between the various states. Again, it's a great option. UHC is very flexible, having this triage system of, have 51% eligible anywhere, that's fine. Where do you have the most enrolled? But just make sure you have a firm handle on that when we're quoting it, and then knowing that hopefully that shouldn't change, but it can, so I want to warn you. And then lastly, sometimes we have scenarios where you literally have the same amount of employees in all the states. So you might have 2 in California, 2 in Texas, 2 in Florida. So nowhere do you have more employees enrolling than another. And in that scenario, that's when headquarters comes into play with United Healthcare. and wherever the group is headquartered is where they're going to write the rates and benefits out of that contract, that policy. One caveat we do want to mention, because we're in California and we write a lot of business alongside Kaiser, is that if we determine we have to write the group out of United Healthcare through a different state, you cannot offer Kaiser alongside United Healthcare. So we all know United Healthcare is super flexible alongside Kaiser inside California. They only require 5 employees in California. The other 95 can be with Kaiser. But if we have a group where the majority of the employees are either eligible or enrolled outside of California, they're going to make us write the group in United Healthcare in that other state, and then you could not offer Kaiser to the California employees. So that does often come up, so I want to point that out as well. There are some restrictions, you can imagine, so just want to call out, UHC does have some restrictions to some specific states, and sometimes this is an evolving, changing list here, but currently it's Colorado, Nevada, and Wyoming. Some of these states, if you are already licensed, you're okay, like Colorado, but if you're not already licensed in Colorado and appointed with UHC, they're not going to allow you to do so now. So FYI, and Nevada is a very popular state, rather not a country, that comes up quite a bit, so be aware. And then sometimes there's limitations on how many employees can be in certain states. For example, in Vermont, United Healthcare would only allow 25% of the enrolled employees to live in Vermont. And just with Aetna, I want to point out that if we're writing the group outside of California, you do need to be licensed with that state and appointed with United Healthcare in that state. So, and we can walk you through that and help you. All right, some other scenarios that come up is out-of-state members with other carriers. So the carriers you're looking at on this slide require 51% eligible to be in California before they're going to write a policy with the group. So Anthem does require that. They're trying to see if they can have some flexibility there. They haven't been able to work that out yet, so just be aware. But you probably know and probably already have groups with Anthem California, small group that has employees outside of California, just not 51% eligible. And those employees are well taken care of, again, through that Blue Card program that Anthem and Blue Shield have throughout the US. It's a very large network, works very well, claims very smooth, et cetera. So that's what you do with those out-of-state members through Anthem. I do want to call out, I'm going to talk more about this in a second. Anthem has a unique program called the HMO Guest Membership Program. So I'll come back to that in a minute. Cigna plus Oscar, you've probably heard a lot about Cigna plus Oscar. They are a brand new carrier per the state of California. We all know Cigna's been around forever. Oscar's been around as well. They have a joint venture, and really think of it as a new and unique carrier. So it's not just Oscar Cigna's network, it's a joint financial venture. So with Cigna plus Oscar groups that you write in California, those out-of-state members would get to be able to take advantage of that also large national network Cigna has called Open Access. So it's a large national network that those out-of-state members would be taken care of. The last carrier listed here is Health Net. So Health Net's a little unique. They don't have their own out-of-state network, but they rent one called First Health, and it is pretty good in my experience that will take care of those out-of-state employees. And the last item we have on this slide is just a quick reminder that, you know, if you have California employees, et cetera, that everyone's covered throughout the world as long as it's true emergency, and it'll be treated as in-network, even if it's international. Some other important reminders that we want to talk about, because this comes up quite a bit because we're located in California and Hawaii is not too far away, lucky for us, is that Hawaii is a unique state and has mandated plans for their residents. And as a result, all of our carriers, except for United Healthcare, if you have employees in Hawaii, unfortunately, we cannot help them. They need to enroll on the Hawaii benefits in that state. However, UHC is different. They actually will offer Hawaii plans that mirror the mandated plans in that state. Caveat, it does take a little bit to get a quote. Most of the quotes we've seen in the scenarios are pretty expensive. So we haven't really actually enrolled too many employees on this scenario, but UHC is an option for those groups. But just remember, all of our other carriers would say, hey, if you have Hawaii residents, you can't put them on our group plan. They need to go find coverage in Hawaii. The second bullet point here is with CalChoice, and this is fairly new, so just a quick reminder. The great news in 2020 is that CalChoice added Anthem's Prudent Buyer Full Network PPO plan within the CalChoice portfolio. As a result of that, your CalChoice groups, as they go through renewal up until July of this year, will need to move over to the Anthem Prudent Buyer PPO network plans if they're not already on there. And just a quick call out that the Prudent Buyer PPO plans honor all metallic tiers except for platinum. So the richest one they have is gold, but it's a nice plan design, certainly. The third bullet point here is with Covered California. As already mentioned, Covered California in California offers Blue Shield PPO plans and Health Net PPO plans, but the out-of-state employees can only enroll on the Blue Shield PPO plan. And then out-of-state dependents, you're probably used to, if you have employees in California that have out-of-state dependents, whether the kids are going to school or a divorce situation, et cetera, you've always advised them, hey, you need to enroll in a PPO plan so that your out-of-state dependents can have coverage other than this true emergency. And I just want to call out that Anthem is unique and has a program called Guest Membership, which if you're selling Anthem direct or through CalChoice, if those California employees want, they can take an HMO plan design and potentially their out-of-state dependents can enroll on an HMO plan through Anthem. It is an enrollment process. You actually, the dependent needs to call the phone number, make sure that there's clearly an HMO network that's strong enough wherever they may be, and then they enroll in the program if there is, and it is an annual process where they need to re-enroll. So, but a very unique experience for Anthem, so just be aware of that. And the last thing mentioned here is college health plans. We get lots of questions about this as well. And really, again, it's unique to every scenario. Some colleges mandate that the students must enroll on the college health plan. Some have it available, but if you have your own private insurance, that's fine. If you're given the option, of course, just like we do always in our industry, is compare, what health levels the student has, what benefits they need, what's the cost going to be, what's the network going to be, et cetera, to decide what's going to be best for them. I know my oldest daughter is headed out of state in August, and I'll be doing this personally myself. And then, of course, check the coordination of benefit rules. Sometimes they coordinate, sometimes they don't. All right, so to tie it up for today, when you have your next out-of-state group, which might have been yesterday, we're getting these questions left and right, just contact us. I know that was probably a little confusing because every scenario is a little different and every carrier handles things a little differently. If the group is completely 100% out of state, you can still be the broker because you're a California broker with Aetna and United. If you have more people outside California than in, still a scenario, Aetna would require 51% outside of California to write it outside. Covered California just needs that principal executive office to be in California and then no requirement on the percentage. They would get Blue Shield, PPO. Kaiser, we could take care of the California employees as long as they're active with California Business Portal. And United Healthcare is the most flexible and they've got that triage system. Do you have 51% eligible anywhere? Do you have 50 or majority enrolling anywhere? And if not, we just go by headquartered. And if it is on enrolling, don't forget to get that firm census. Quick note, we do sell large group up to 300 lives. Large group is different. So for example, Anthem small group can't write groups in these scenarios, but Anthem large group can because they just go by headquarters. So if your group is a California headquartered group, we can write Anthem large group no matter how many employees you have in different states. And just remember too, if we are having to write the group outside of California with Aetna and United, you do need to be licensed with that state and appointed, so do allow some time for that. Because it can take a process as well as quoting. It can be, remember, if the group's deemed a large group out of state, we'll need more information and can take longer to quote than normal. So just call us, we can help you. I will take a second here to see if there's any questions. All right, there is at least one question. 1 second here, a couple questions, sorry. All right. Does with the Kaiser participation requirements allow companies to write Kaiser PPO plans to provide out-of-state coverage? They do not. So Kaiser won't allow more than 30% of the group to be out of state to get that Kaiser PPO. So be aware of that. But again, it's a great option for the California employees that want Kaiser, but you do have to go find local coverage for the out-of-staters elsewhere. Okay. All right, 1 second. This is about, okay. This is about Kaiser and composite rates. So Kaiser's in about 8 different states. So it depends on the scenario, what we can do. I will say that United actually in some states will even give a small group option of composite rates or age banded. Again, we need a good census in order to do that, to make sure that the rates don't change and surprise anyone. But I will have to find out if what the other 8 states will allow. And I do know that Kaiser, a large group, because we do represent them as well, will allow employees in different states to have Kaiser, but Kaiser small group, you can't offer Kaiser to out-of-state on the HMO side to those out-of-state members, even if they're living like in Oregon that has Kaiser, for example. So hopefully that makes sense. If I'm not answering all your questions clearly, just circle back and we'll get back to you as well. All right, 1 sec. Okay, yes, so recording will be available. HMO options for out of state is a good question. Aetna used to do that if you had 5 employees in one location. If you were writing the group out of state, yes, sometimes UHC, you can get HMO options for the out of staters, but be aware now your California employees are viewed as out of state people for that contract, and they would only be able to get PPO plan designs. Cal Choice is not currently an option if you have more than 51% outside of California, but if you have a group with 51% in, they certainly will allow out-of-state employees to have Cal Choice. And again, it's the Anthem Prudent Buyer Full Network plan. So that's a great option for them. That's new since July. Sorry, I'm still glancing at these questions, making sure I've covered most of them. Okay, yeah, if you don't have a majority in one state, there's option with UHC and possibly Cal Choice, I'm sorry, Covered California as well as Kaiser. But again, only for the Kaiser people. For Cigna plus Oscar, it is on Cigna paper, but Oscar is really the administrator handling all the administrative processes, connecting with those telehealth and providers. So it's really a combination, but technically it's on Cigna paper. Talked about that. Okay, I'm sorry. I think I quickly glanced at all of them. We will certainly circle back. It is right at 10 o'clock though, so I won't keep you any longer. I appreciate your time today. Your partnership with B&P. We are planning on having another webinar on April 29th to cover how our carriers are handling ARPA, COBRA premium subsidy, because I know that is what we're bombarded with right now. And thank you for your patience. We have reached out to all of our carriers and they're figuring it out now that the DOL, et cetera, has come out with their FAQs and model notices, and we're going to keep you posted. I know that's definitely a hot topic, and the goal is to have a webinar on that April 29th. As a reminder, as I said, we'll be sending out a copy of today's recording and the presentation. And again, we hope as more and more people are getting vaccinated. I know I had my first vaccination on Monday. Luckily, it went well. And I think about at least 60% of B&P staff or at least had their first shot, if not both. We're getting closer to hopefully more and more better days ahead. And hopefully we'll be able to see everyone in person sooner rather than later. So hope you guys are doing well. Don't be shy. Let us know what you need and take care.